Hey, welcome World Entertainment, and it's officially here, the day Kathleen Kennedy officially is stepping down as president of Lucasfilm, which people have been right all along, even though they've said it since day one practically, and we all said, yeah, she will leave when her contract runs out, which is exactly what happened. But she isn't walking out into the sunset gracefully. No, she's lashing out at Star Wars fans in an exit interview and pretty much is refusing to take any responsibility for anything that has happened with Star Wars. In fact, she's doubling down and says she wouldn't change a thing. So, on her way out the door, she's basically going, screw you, it was the fans' fault, not my fault. And it's just like, you gotta be kidding me. And of course, there's lots of other articles jumping on what she says about toxic fandom and calls out all the YouTubers that dragged her name through the dirt and stuff like that, and say, shut the hell up. But we're going to take a look at this. Now, what you have to also keep in mind is she is not retiring. That's the one thing everyone is thinking, oh, that's it, she's finally done. No. She is simply stepping down as Lucasfilm president. She's probably still going to have a presence at Lucasfilm, but she won't be running the show. At least from the outside looking in, it will look like she's probably not running the show. Dave Filoni and this Linguin, what a bloody name, they'll be running the show. But we're going to have a look at the article over here at that Park Place, which really breaks down everything she says, where it's not going, oh, it's YouTubers' fault and fans' fault and stuff. We're going to look at the whole article. Yes, that's right, the whole article, because we really have to just to break down everything she says. So let's, without a further ado, jump into this. So, as Kathleen Kennedy prepares to exit Lucasfilm, her farewell interview with Deadline reads less like an honest assessment of her tenure and more like a final attempt to rewrite the narrative, one that once again places the blame on Star Wars fans themselves. Rather than acknowledging the fractured state of the franchise she leaves behind, Kennedy repeatedly minimizes criticism, dismisses dissent as fringe, and insists she would change nothing about the decisions that led Lucasfilm to its current position. So, when discussing the lows of her time running Lucasfilm, Kennedy did not point to the lack of a cohesive sequel trilogy plan, the collapse of multiple announced films, or the diminishing culture impact of Star Wars as a theatrical brand. Instead, she targeted the audience. She said, the lows are that you've got a very, very small percentage of the fan base that has enormous expectations, and basically they want to continue to see pretty much the same thing. Imagine that Star Wars fans want Star Wars to look, feel and resemble Star Wars. So Kennedy's framing reduces years of sustained backlash into an issue caused by an allegedly tiny, unreasonable subset of fans. A claim that stands in stark contrast to declining box office confidence, streaming iteration, and the brand's increasingly diminished presence in pop culture. She continued, and if you're not going to do that, then you know going in that you're going to disappoint them. I'm not sure that there's anything you can do about that, because you can't please everybody. No, we're not talking about you have to please everybody, but when you have the whole idea of we're bringing back Han, Luke and Leia, and that's what you promised fans, you were finally going to get Han, Luke and Leia back together, and that was the key thing. They said back together on the big screen, and then you gave us a movie that you didn't put a single frame of footage with the big three together, is where you disappointed fans. So rather than treating criticism as feedback, Kennedy characterizes it as an unavoidable annoyance, something that simply comes with the territory and therefore does not warrant reflection or change. If there was any lingering doubt about Kennedy's mindset as she exits Lucasfilm, she eliminated it entirely in one definitive statement. She said, "I wouldn't do that any differently, and I wouldn't change anything that we've done over the years." This declaration comes after more than a decade marked by inconsistent storytelling, abandoned creative directions, and a sequel trilogy that famously lacked a unified vision. Yet, Kennedy insists that no aspect of her leadership deserves reconsideration. She elaborated further, "I understand why some people may like certain things more than others, but that's not going to change why I decided to do certain things and why I decided to work with the people that we worked with." Jesus Christ. So, in other words, fan response is irrelevant, decisions were made, and those decisions are beyond critique. Kennedy also repeatedly positioned herself as the true steward of George Lucas's legacy, invoking his name as a shield against criticism. So she said, "All you can do is try to tell good stories and try to stick to the essence of what George created. He embedded incredible values into Star Wars, the whole idea of hope and fun and entertainment, and yet you've abandoned his treatment for the future trilogy. You sat there and spoke." Mahler loves showing the clip because he thinks it's hilarious, of Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams doing their first real interview about The Force Awakens, and they kept referring to George Lucas like he had died. They were like, "Oh, we kept asking ourselves, what would George do?" And we kept going back like, what would George say? And we could keep hearing his voice in our head, and it's like, the only thing missing was the camera panning out and George actually sitting at the end of the couch going, "I'm right here, guys, like, well, hi." It's like, what would George do? Why don't you just phone him and ask him? Or better yet, what would he do? You know what he would have done, because he handed you a treatment for the future trilogy and you've binned it. So that part is garbage. So the implication is unmistakable. Those who reject the current direction of Star Wars are not merely dissatisfied consumers, but people who fundamentally misunderstand the franchise's values. This rhetorical move reframes criticism as moral or philosophical failure rather than a response to storytelling choices, leadership decisions, or franchise mismanagement. None of this is new. Kennedy has spent years attributing backlash to loud minor subsections of the fanbase, online negativity, or unrealistic expectations. What makes this interview notable is not the rhetoric itself, but the timing. This was an opportunity for reflection. Instead, Kennedy doubled down. As she prepares to leave Lucasfilm, she offered no acknowledgement of missteps, no lessons learned, and no indication that leadership bears any responsibility for the current state of Star Wars. The fault, once again, according to Kathleen Kennedy, lies with the Star Wars fans. If this interview is meant to defend Kathleen Kennedy's legacy, it makes one thing abundantly clear. She does not believe the audience was ever owed accountability. For fans hoping her departure would signal a philosophical reset at Lucasfilm, the interview offers a sobering reality check. Kathleen Kennedy may be leaving Star Wars, but her view of its fans hasn't changed at all. And she made sure to say that out loud on her way out. So that's what she basically was saying. So she had absolutely no regrets whatsoever. She's absolutely doubling down and refusing to take any responsibility or accountability. Even the fact that she doesn't say, "Oh, you know, I regret not being able to get a Rian Johnson trilogy going, or a Dave and Dan trilogy going, or the Taika Waititi movie going, or the Kevin Feige movie going, or all of these other movies that I've announced and never bloody had happen." She's announced more movies and fired more people than actual projects were made. But don't worry, guys, it's not her fault. It's our fault. It's our fault because we just couldn't understand what Star Wars was about. Even though they clearly didn't know what Star Wars was about when they went ahead and went, "Hey, you know what we're going to do? You know what will really make fans happy? Let's show them how Han Solo got the name Solo." You remember that? Yeah. So her way out the door, she's turned back, flipped the bird, and said, screw you guys, I'm going home. It's all your fault. But you know what? We'll always remember her for being this.
Let's put a chick in it and make her name it gay.
Yep, put a chick in it and make it gay. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do, of course, let me know what your thoughts and feelings are about all of this. And with that, do like, share, subscribe, and hit the hype button, all that good stuff. Cheers. I'll catch you in the next one.